December 1st. It is 6:02. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Cray?
Here.
Mr. Garrett?
Here.
Mr. Gentry? Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino? Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. We have McGee here to do the pledge. Mr. Scott, if you could.
Well, good evening, Board of Education. We are super excited to be here representing LeGee Elementary. We have some outstanding students who have started a program this year. It's the first time we've had it at LeGee, and it's the Student Ambassador Program. And it's a group of 5th grade students who were nominated by their teachers to represent their fellow classmates and be leaders amongst our student population at LeGee. You may have seen the video that was put out there by Alex, and it shows one of their jobs, which is greeting students every day as they come into our school. Every day they're standing out there, just like the mailmen. It's the rain, snow, whatever, wind, and they're out there doing it, and they do a fantastic job. And they find new and creative ways to greet the students every day. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll lead the pledge.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm Sophie from Miss Hanson's class. I'm Piper from Mrs. Scott's class. I'm Kayla from Miss Bessie's class. I'm Maddie from Miss Bessie's class. I'm Sapratic from Miss Bowie's class.
Let's all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll line up right in front of that row.
Parents, come on up and come up here and take pictures. Good job, guys.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Great job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Clear out. Thank you all. Okay. Moving on to item 3. Tonight we have the oath of office for our newest board member, Mr. Jonathan Daly. Mr. Daly, we had the Board of Education had a special meeting a week or so ago, whereas we had 7 applicants. 5 of them were ultimately able to be interviewed. 2 had to withdraw due to personal issues that had come up. We interviewed 5, spent quite a bit of time in closed session, and ultimately nominated Mr. Daly to join us as a member of the board, and that was passed unanimously. So Mr. Daly is going to come up, and we're going to do the oath of office, and afterwards he'll assume his seat with the board. So I'm going to have you go ahead and, instead of me reading and you having to recite after me, I'm just going to have you read through the full oath of office, if you could.
Sure, thanks. I, Jonathan Daly, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Huntley District 158 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States the Constitution of the State of Illinois and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayers' interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that no decisions can be made only by majority vote at a public board meeting. I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district. I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Huntley District 158. I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community's school to advance the vision for Huntley District 158, and I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the area of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good to see. Okay. You're on. You're on. That's not too big of an oath of office, is it? There's not too much responsibility associated with that particular oath. Glad to have you. I appreciate you being willing to volunteer your services. Thank you. You be comfortable there for a second. Item 4, public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? We have no public comment tonight. Okay. Okay, we do? Oh, okay, can you, all right, you were supposed to fill out something, but that's okay. You can fill it out afterwards. It's not a problem. So you'd like to come, please come up. Absolutely. Yeah, have them fill it out after, they can fill it out afterwards. That's not a problem.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hi, how you doing?
Good. I've never been through something like this, so I don't know how it works.
Yeah. So just at least state your name.
My name is Lena Campos,
Okay.
with my daughter, Lena Campos, as well.
Okay.
We are here to raise concern in regards to an incident that happened to my grandson, her son, on the school bus.
I'm sorry, Ms. Campbell, is the green light on there, would you mind pushing that button?
Yeah,
It is? Okay. I apologize.
yeah, we just can't, try and speak into the mic so we can.
So we are here to introduce a situation that happened with my grandson, which is my daughter's son, that happened on the bus. I believe it could have been prevented after viewing parts of the surveillance and going over some information with the assistant superintendent and the assistant principal, speaking to the supervisor of transportation. There was a lot of balls that were dropped. There were a lot of things that could have been prevented. My grandson came off the bus and told his mother that his he was exposed. He was asked to pull down his pants. So when I went to do the initial complaints over at the district, I was told that I couldn't speak with anybody because they were in a meeting. And I said I needed to speak with somebody because I was not leaving. So they tried to get me out of there a couple of times. I did not leave. I ended up calling the police department to make a sexual assault report for my grandson. Trying to be an advocate for him because this kid started school in August and happiest kid, on and off the bus. Mom, don't make me late for the bus. Excited kid, healthy kid. When I tell you this kid's been bullied for 2 months, and we've made 2 emails and numerous phone calls to the district, and nothing was done about it. No follow-up when we were told videos were going to be downloaded. I found out today by the assistant director that the videos were downloaded, but they don't know why nobody got back to us. So with all this being said, I believe what happened to my grandson could have been prevented. There's no seating arrangements. I watched this video. My grandson's at kindergarten, and he went all the way to the back of the bus. There was another kid on the bus who seemed like he was guiding everybody. And when I watched this video with the assistant principal, she had told me, I had stated to her, do you not see the problem here? And she said, yes, I do. So I said, okay, we have a big problem here. So I opened an anonymous chat, and that was me, everybody, on Huntley Chat, to get some feedback, because I know my grandson's not the only one. I know. My grandson now is very thin from the bullying. I say he's sad, he's not the same. I take videos of him grunting at night, angry, fighting in his dreams. It's hard that I wasn't there to protect him nor his mother. She cried the whole first night. She didn't tell me till the next morning because she knew I would be pissed. And when I made that first initial phone call to transportation and spoke with Jennifer and explained the situation, her words were, ma'am, we don't have enough bus drivers. I yelled at her. I swore at her. And I said, if you don't have enough bus drivers, close the goddamn route down and get some aid to help these bus drivers with our students because they're not safe. When I opened this chat, there were numerous complaints, numerous. The chat got closed down this morning for some reason. I called them and I emailed them and asked them to post that chat. Why was it deleted? It mysteriously popped up. I took screenshots of everything and when it popped back up too. So to take that down, still trying to figure out how it got taken down or who asked to have it taken down. This is not going to go away. I did get a call from the assistant superintendent today, and she did tell me they were going to make some changes and do some seating assignments, which already are in place, but they're not being followed. And this could have really been prevented. So now he doesn't want to come to school. So we're thinking about putting him in a private school, and I'll pay for that. We're trying to get a doctor's note to see if we can get him seen so he can get sent out. I called CASA to do an interview with him so we can find out what really happened to him when his pants were pulled down or told to be pulled down. I called you, Mr. Rowe. I called you, Mrs. Superintendent. I don't remember, I'm not good with names. I called the assistant principal. I called the principal of Cheswick. No one got back to me. And actually, the assistant principal told me she would get back to me Tuesday by 3. I didn't hear from anybody until I walked in that school. And when I went to go pick up Aiden yesterday out of that school, that wasn't the kid running up to me saying, oh, I had a good day, Nana. This is what I did. Not at all. At all. So he's affected by it. And we are trying to seek help to see what happened. We don't know what happened. We're only assuming. But it's a hard one. It's a hard one. And I eat and cry, think what they did to him or what they said to him, or because the seats are too damn high, we can't see what happened, or just leaning around and talking to him. That's probably when they told him to take it down or the kid across. We don't know because I'm not getting an answer from nobody. I want that video. I want the full video. I am going to move further with this and try to see if I get help from the community as far as the other parents who are being bullied, the kids are being bullied, and there's a lot of them. And I'm sure all of you had a chance to look at those comments. I'm sure you did. There's a lot. I met a parent in the office, knowing she was going in for that meeting for bullying, and I went and told the assistant principal, you need to tell every parent what's going on here. You have to. I was really pissed off. And for her to be hush-hush and talk very low, no, I wasn't talking low. I respected that the kids were coming in and out, but I made it very clear to her, share what's going on here, why you guys are not doing anything. And this is my own experience. So there is a sexual assault that was opened up for Aiden, so we can seek help, find out what happened. I was told the ball was dropped several times by her today, as far as, yes, there was no supervision. Nobody was up there. Nobody told Aiden not to go to the back of the bus. Aiden should have been in that first row or that second row, and he wasn't. And then when I looked at that video, that bus driver was looking, but did she stop any kid and ask them where to sit? No, she did not. Did not. I'm shaking. I'm
So I apologize for interrupting. I didn't tell you, the rules of public comment are 3 minutes. I've allowed you.
Okay.
So I don't want,
I think I did, but
I
if the
appreciate
mom
you
can
for
have
coming.
a moment,
and expressing your concerns, and I'm sure the administration will be addressing your concerns
Okay,
very shortly. So,
okay.
thank you for coming and taking the time.
You're welcome.
today.
No problem.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, no further public comments are out there? Okay. Item 5 is revision and adoption of the agenda. Are there any items that anyone has on the agenda that they need to be revised? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Can we have roll call on that? Second. Or a second too would help. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Troy. So we have a second from Mr. Troy. Now can we have roll call?
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry, Mr. Craddy,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino. Yes. Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Okay. On item 6, Finance Committee, we have, I think, before I start the Finance Committee, there is with Mr. Daly coming on board, I do have a couple small tweaks to our committees, and I've spoken to a couple here, but I just want, as far as how the committees will work tonight, Mr. Daly is coming on to the Community Relations Committee, you're coming on to the HR Committee, and you're going to be the chair on the Policy Committee. I'm just having to move Mr. Troy to Legislation from Policy, and Ms. Maiorino will become the chair of the Community Relations Committee. The changes that we need to make. So when we're working off of our committees tonight, please fill those roles. So on to Finance Committee. So we have our purchase orders, impress checks, accounts payable, disbursements listed in the agenda. Mr. Craddy, you and me are the only two committee members. Do you have any questions related to those items? No. Okay, do any of the other members of the board have any questions concerning those items? No. That are listed? If not, we will go ahead and move those forward to the board for approval at our next meeting. Item 6.2 is the monthly fiscal updates. Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much. Only a few things to note here, and then one item for discussion for the board, and we'll talk about that in a minute. A few things to note. We're beginning the process for the FY23 budget. The FY24 budget, because we're living in the FY23 budget and the 5-year plan. So as the board knows, this is a 9-10 month process, and we are beginning that process full day together to start to roll the current year budget into next year. And so in a few months, we will be presenting the board with the first draft of that budget as well as the 5-year plan. A big portion of that FY24 budget will be the levy hearing, and the levy that the board will be reviewing and approving at the levy hearing in 2 weeks from today on the 15th. So just want to make the board aware that we are moving forward with the FY24 budget. The other thing that's not as part of the fiscal memo that just came up over the last few days, as the board probably knows, we've been looking for vehicles. We've been looking for minivans over the last year and a half, and with the supply chain and the things going on in the country, and actually, frankly, across the world, it has become very challenging and very hard to obtain, whether it's an O&M truck or a minivan. Well, we did recently find a local, fairly local Syracuse dealer that has minivans, and they're coming in, and we should be able to replace some of our minivans. So that's good news. And so I've shared that across the board. How many minivans do we need? Well, that's the question. We have 5 current minivans in our fleet, and over the last couple of years, well, we should have replaced several of those minivans, because we have 2 of those minivans in our fleet that are from 2002 with several 100,000 miles, and I will tell you, they're not fun to drive. 2002, so almost 20 years old, and our newest 2, we have a 2014 and 2015 minivan, and both of those vehicles have in excess of 145 to 150,000 miles on those vehicles. So I think administration will be bringing a recommendation forward possibly as soon as December 15th for the purchase of some minivans, and we're going to determine what that number should be, whether that's 4 or 5 minivans. Do we replace the whole fleet, or are we going to look at 2 to 3? So we will be bringing forward a recommendation more than likely at the December meeting, if in fact I do like all the numbers that we received from the dealership. So just wanted to make the board aware of that.
Chime in, just as a point of a refresher, the strategy that we're trying to employ with these minivans and why this is, keep this at top of mind is, if we can purchase these minivans, remember the job description change we adjusted for bus drivers to be van drivers, because you don't need a school bus driver certification, but not the CDL. We will be able to hopefully hire at a more expedited rate some new drivers to focus on vans that will take care of our out-of-district students that can then bring bus drivers back into the district to help relieve the stress that we have with our buses and the number of the drivers that are doing double routes, causing some of them to be 30 minutes late. So obtaining these vehicles, if we're able to pull off the price, will be hopefully a big step towards some of the relief that we've been trying to set the stage for some months, just as a refresher.
Yeah. And I would add to that, Dr. Rowe, that's a very good point. And I would add to that, when we bring in these vehicles and if we bring in these drivers, right, we're going to reduce the cost that we're currently paying today for contract transportation, that we are using contract transportation to transport many of our, special ed private facility students. So if we could bring that back in-house, it's also going to be a significant cost savings to the district as well. So to keep that in mind as well. So thank you. Next item on the fiscal update list here is the final levy 2022, which I already talked about. We'll present that in 2 weeks at December 15th levy hearing, but also a potential levy 2022 abatement. And this item is really a refresher from a previous decision that we as a board and administration made over 1.5 years ago. And it's the result of if you recall, it's the result of the operating surplus that we had for fiscal year 21. And at the time we had this discussion, the operating surplus was approximately going to be $2.1 to $2.4 million. And at that time, the board made a few decisions, very good decisions. And one of those decisions was, to cut the FY22, the school year 22 registration fees in half for the parents of the school district, which we did last year. They also set aside, this board administration set aside $750,000 to be utilized as a future debt abatement for the community. We had further discussions about utilizing that debt abatement, that $750,000 last year, and we opted not to because CPI last year was only 1.7%. And at that time we made that decision, we knew with the trending CPI that we were going to be at the maximum of a 5% extension based on the CPI coming in at 7%. So now here we are, right, levy year 22, and so I want to remind the board that yes, we do have the levy hearing coming up in 2 weeks that's going to show we're passing an extension of 5%, but I think it's important to have the discussion here tonight to note that we have a commitment in hand, a $750,000 future abatement, and by doing that, I've outlined within my fiscal memo a few different scenarios, but really these scenarios are actually kind of administration recommendations. And the very first one is, we utilize that $750,000 as a levy year 2022, right, related to the current levy that we're going to approve in 2 weeks, to decrease that levy, and the $750,000 would provide for an approximate 0.88% decrease in property taxes, so almost a 1% decrease, resulting in an approximate $45 decrease for someone with a $300,000 market value home. Currently, with a 5% increase in the operating tax rate, right, we reviewed that at the last board meeting, combined with the approximate 3.5% increase in bond and interest, excluding new construction, the overall increase to the extension that you're going to see in 2 weeks for levy year 22 approximates 4.81%. So that's the anticipated overall increase to the community. But after the $750,000 abatement, the rate decreases to approximately 3.9. So that's important to note. So we're bringing that 5% down to 3.9 essentially. Scenario number 2, which is a recommendation, is actually for the following year. Today, we know, right, we know the market and the economy and where it is today, and CPI continues to be high. And there's a very good chance that we may have another 5% extension in levy year 23, a year from today. So currently, with an anticipated 5% increase in that operating tax rate for next levy year, combined with the continued 3.5% increase in bond and interest for one more year, excluding new construction, the overall estimated increase to the extension for next year, and we can note this today because it's minus new construction, would approximate 5.7%. And it's higher than what you would think, because you would think, right, 5% plus a 3.5 bond and interest, it should come down. But when we abate the $750,000 of debt in the current year, we have to make up for that next year. So the recommendation is this: we have excess funds in our bond and interest fund. Over the years, right, since the beginning of time, we earn interest in bond and interest, and today there's approximately $750,000 to $800,000 fund balance, if you will, sitting in that account. And we could utilize that money to pay down debt as an abatement in the future. So the recommendation on the table is to utilize those excess funds, approximating $750,000, and we'll know more once we ultimately finally true it up after the current year. Interest rates are pretty good now. It might climb over 1 year. To abate debt for levy year 23 next year, and the overall increase to the extension levy for 2023 would reduce from that 5.7% to 4.8%. So I bring this up so that we understand that we have an opportunity to smooth out the impact over the next 2 years for the community with regard to property taxes. Because if we don't do anything in levy year 23, it's going to be, it's a bigger gap we have to fill with knowing that we're going to probably hit that 5% PTEL limit again for levy year 23. So I wanted to open that up for discussion for the board so that we could talk through that. The process for abating funds, we usually do that in January, February. But I would like to do it in January this year because in January we do have to do one abatement, and it's related to our debt restructuring, the forward that just a few months ago, the $12.47 million forward that we did. There will be an abatement resolution that we have to do in January, and I'd like to get all the abatements done in January for that reason, which would be the 2016 abatement that we do every year, standard operating procedure, this $750,000 abatement, as well as the $12.47 million resolution abatement.
Okay.
There's a lot there, sorry.
No, there is, but, you know, Mr. Grady, again, you and me on the committee, the first scenario, 750 is consistent with what we talked about, what we passed. This is just the tail end piece of what we had kind of parsed out as far as the budget surplus in that 21 year. So I don't think there's any concerns that way. I think it absolutely does what it needs to do at a time when our taxpayers are going to be taking a little bit of a hit here with how CPI has moved. And then the scenario 2 is something we discussed internally a little bit as we realized that we were going to have probably 2 consecutive years of 5% CPIs that occurred, and then we were looking for some other potential relief we could offer, and then Mr. Altmeyer had come up with the existing fund balance that is in the bond and interest fund, and it makes 100% sense. I mean, what this does is it takes care of the 2 years of bond and interest repayment that's a little bit elevated compared to where we've reset all of this through our restructuring. Our restructuring that we have going out after these next couple of years brings the annual debt service down a little bit and gets this smoothed out considerably. So I think this, you know, scenario 2 is a necessary bridge to keep that tax rate from being too extreme as far as increases to our taxpayers. So I don't know if you have any comments, Mr. Grady, concerning it.
No, I think it makes sense. I guess my only concern, not concern, but I mean, we're pretty confident on the 5% for next year.
You only got one more month of
Yeah.
November CPI and then
Right.
this December CPI. And it's coming, it's coming down, but you're coming down off of sevens.
Right.
Are you gonna get down below
Right.
5 by the end of December?
Yeah.
Probably not. Most likely not. And if you do, you're just gonna get, it's not gonna be materially below that.
Right. There has been a historical dip in December, but not to the tune of 1.5% off of the trended current.
Right, and again, we're not, still isn't in stone. I mean,
Right.
that abatement isn't until January of '24.
Right. Even if CPI comes in at 4.9,
Right.
4.75, we're still looking at, you know, rather than it being a 5.7% increase, it'll be a 5.5% increase, which is still a pretty large increase, yeah.
Right, so from a, scenario 2 aspect is more of just a heads up planning. This is an opportunity that pathway we're looking at because if you don't do something like scenario 2 from this year, the abatement we're gonna do this year, you'll end up having a pretty decent increase in the bond repayment, for the following year before that has gotten smoothed out yet.
Correct. Yeah, and we're not asking for a recommendation tonight on levy year 23, next year's levy. More or less just a discussion point, to let the board know and to let the community know that we're having these internal discussions so that, they know what's coming down the pipeline.
Okay. All right, so with that, is there anybody from the remainder of the board who's on the committee?
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in,
Yeah.
if it's okay.
Yeah.
So just for clarity, for the people who are listening at home, your recommendation here is for 2 consecutive years of equal abatements? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, currently, yeah, that's what we discussed, and that may change a little bit based on, right, a 1 year of additional interest coming into the bond and interest.
Yeah.
Correct.
I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
and
that
we'll
that's clear.
we'll true up, the excess funds in the fund balance.
Right,
For
but
fund
at this point,
security.
with the information that we have in hand, the data that's in our hands, this is what we're looking at for 2 consecutive years.
Correct.
Right, that's a separate 750, we're not, 2 750s, not 1 750.
Right, that's what I wanted to make sure that was clear and understood at home. Thank you.
And that's, all I have for the fiscal memo.
Okay, are there anybody else who had any comments, concerns? Yeah, go ahead.
For clarity for
Yeah.
The 1,750 is part of the third
Yes,
of and the other 750 is
completely new.
is completely, okay, that's what I,
It's not from that specific pot that we're allocating to
Making
the,
sure my
to
From the
still
operating,
functioning.
yeah,
Thank you.
from the operating surplus from fiscal year 21, correct.
Thank you.
Bill or John, did you have any questions or comments? No.
Nothing additional here.
Okay. Okay, all of that was for informational purposes. Again, the action on the first part of that still doesn't have to occur until, January.
Yeah, we'll bring that forward in January.
Forward then, okay, which is fine, so, that. Okay, we can move on then to your revenue and expenditures report.
Thank you very much. In front of you, you have the October 22 financial executive summary for the month ended. We continue to track within budget. I have really no concerns from a revenue or an expenditure standpoint, this early into the year. That being said, every month we do talk about health insurance, and we are starting to see health insurance trend downward, which is always a really good thing, as our employees hopefully are getting a little healthier and some of the large claims are kind of falling out of the pipeline. So the October 2022 claims are $618,000, down several $100,000, $260,000 from the September, even further from August. So you can see, just looking at August, September, October, we are trending downward. And the further good news there is that the claims for October of $618,000 were significantly less than last year's $723,000 for the same period, even though enrollment in the plan is up a little bit. So we're beginning to trend a little favorably, for overall for health insurance for the district, so that is good news. Looking at the dashboard, like I said, from a revenue expenditure standpoint, no real, at this point, 4 months into the year, no real concerns. Impact and transition fees appear to be down a little bit, but that's common depending upon when, some of the villages send us, the impact fees. It's not like that is on a set time schedule. But even so, I think we'll be fine hitting that year-end budget number. Last year, if you recall, we significantly exceeded budget on the impact and transition fee line item, which is, you're seeing, in the new construction number that we talked about last month with the levy, the preliminary levy, and that's sitting at $25 million of new construction. So hopefully we continue to see that trend moving forward. Other than that, interest earnings are up, which is always a really good thing for the district. It's about time. We're starting to see a little interest earnings with the excess funds that we do have. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, no questions again, spotlighting on health insurance. If you took, we're 4 months in, if you took 3 times the claims or insurance cost to date, it works out to be about 10.3 million with a budget of 11.1 million. Yeah. So it's, as you said, it helps when you get a month or two that's not as onerous in that effect. So that's trending, better. It's good. Mr. Craddy, I don't know if you have anything specific related to the revenue expenditures report.
Nope.
I have nothing further on it. Does anybody else on the board have any questions concerning it? If not, thank you for that piece. And then lastly, for finance is the equipment declared as surplus. Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much. Standard operating procedure here. A few times during the year, we work with the technology department to kind of clean out some of our closets, if you will, and certainly from the harvesting of parts on our Chromebooks and doing what we can to kind of save money on that end. There's a lot of different things you'll see on that surplus list, all of which is non-functional, and certainly it's exceeded its useful life. I will tell you every time we do this, I go back because we stage a lot of this equipment back in the transportation bay and big bins. I'll go back there and I'll look through some of the stuff just to see what we have. And I did see a few overhead projectors.
Of course you did.
They're not on this list because they're so old.
I see one.
They were so old, the barcodes didn't work. So, I think the overhead projectors are gone. Now, part of me wanted to bring one to this meeting and actually give a presentation with an overhead projector, but I opted not just in case.
Do we
I
have,
asked the board to approve the list.
do we have a microfiche, device so we can show people what that looks like too?
Chris has a lot of different things to bring to the meeting.
But I'm not gonna say no.
Yeah.
A lot of takes it.
Definitely consent by here.
There are overheads at McHaven and things.
Okay. So there's still.
Well, no, some of those made it over. That was some of the ones I saw.
Gotcha.
All right,
So
so,
with that, I ask for the board to approve this and move this forward. Thank you.
okay, so getting rid of some of the relics. Mr. Craddy, you have any questions concerning that list? I don't. Anybody from the board have any questions concerning that?
No.
List?
Yeah, Tony,
Go ahead.
just one question I had, is there any disposition fee or is there any salvage value with any of that equipment? Or
We
is it
do.
entirely?
Chris, do you want to address that? Or I can.
So, in the past, we have sent some of the equipment out to we have sent some out in the past for recycling. What we have actually found is we've had better luck actually offsetting the cost of other recyclables that would cost us to recycle, like the tube TVs and things like that. So we've actually had a couple recyclers that we partner with to take that stuff also, and some of these Chromebooks that they can refurbish if they're still functioning to offset those costs. So at the end of the day, we're not bringing money into the district, but we're not having to pay for recycling. We've also ventured into a couple opportunities with some students, former students, who have taken some of these devices that are beyond their useful life for us here in the school district, collect them, do some refurbishment of those, and then donate those further along to organizations that really just could use some extra. We've actually sent a few truckloads off to organizations that to help some of our former students get some of that off the ground as well. So we've taken advantage of that. And as Mark mentioned, pretty much anything that we can beg, borrow, and steal a part out of, we do. So a lot of these are kind of empty shells of Chromebooks, because we've taken all of the useful parts to stockpile and use for other devices. We've been running that program now for just about the entire life of our Chromebook program. To date, I want to say about 8 years or so in Chromebooks. We've purchased a total of about 100 screens. There's districts not so far from here that purchased that many all months.
Yeah.
Sure. So we're really proud of that program, and frankly, it gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're cycling through parts and devices.
And that's where I was gonna go. Yeah, when you go back there and you look at the bins, there's a lot of dismantled Chromebooks. And so we're asking them to not only take that stuff, but there could be laptops in there for which they have to clear the hard drives. And so there is a lot of those things that they would cost us significant amounts of money if we gave those to them separately.
It's an avoidance of cost.
It's an avoidance of cost.
Yeah, and no disposal fee and no real asset value left. Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you.
Good question. Any other questions concerning that? Not, we'll move that forward to the board for approval at our next meeting. Move on to item 7, which is Building and Grounds Committee, Mr. Troy.
Thank you. Item 7.1, O&M updates. Mr. Rinkosik, it's going to be an action-packed agenda for O&M tonight, so head us out.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a busy period for us, which is a kind of an anomaly over the years. It is time for the school. I just want to highlight a few things here, 5 items, and be happy to answer questions about any other things on the report. It's been, as of May 31st, it'll be the end of the 5th contract year on our custodial services RFP. And our partner elected in the last amendment to propose that we do put a sunset at 5/31/2023 on that contract. But we could, by contract, consider a renewal, but we think it's time for us to go out to bid. I revised the RFP, more quality-based. The rubric and the evaluation will be more based on quality. And I would appreciate any interest by some of our board members who want to be on that evaluation committee, which will probably commence its evaluation in early March, late February, early March. The next thing on my agenda is to complement that, enhance our operation, and become always wanting to be most cost-effective and productive in what we do. I'm constantly evaluating different opportunities with autonomous custodial equipment. In other words, a robotic machine to clean the floors. And our hallways in our high school present enough square footage that it's been interesting, and we've tested several versions. I found that there is a brand out there right now, and I've interviewed people that have been using them for a couple of years, love them. They're very good machines, functional, and don't break down much. And the price to lease one of these machines with a full-service backup contract, so we wouldn't have to consider any concerns with expense for repairs, is now it's approaching the point about 3/4 of an FTE, just under 3/4 of an FTE custodial match. And with the size of our hallways, we're evaluating at this moment right now the opportunity to meet that goal of that much work by maybe having to change a few pieces of door hardware, because we can't have we've got to have a certain size opening, and it's not that complicated. We don't have to change the frames, just the door hardware, and get rid of like a divider mullion. So we're evaluating that right now, but we're almost there. And so it's my goal that after we release this RFP and we do go into a pre-proposal session with all the considered parties that are interested in throwing us an offer, that we have that negotiated and that we tell them that that's part of the model. The new model will also not dictate, the new RFP will not dictate the minimum number of manpower or the particular equipment to be provided, because I want to let the vendors think out of the box. They're going to have to demonstrate that they provide a time study to prove the manpower they have and the efficiencies of the equipment that they provide to prove to us that they are meeting our performance standards that we will preserve. Happy to, hear any feedback from the board about that idea before we release it here, hopefully real soon. Good?
Go ahead.
It's informal.
If you got a question.
I have a question. It's obviously intriguing. And it's intriguing that, again, not looking to just replace people, but we're trying to replace people our vendor has a hard time providing, correct?
Yes, we have failed to have a full staff through almost the entire contract.
Right. So, I'm not necessarily looking to replace people's jobs, but the problem is we have a hard enough time, our vendor has a hard enough time providing this to the workforce.
Because of the aggressive nature of how we've gone through this contract to date with increasing the wage, we're approaching getting there right now, but we're not there yet. Yeah. And it's
struggle.
Yeah, and that contract started long before the pandemic and all the struggles that, everyone in the business has experienced since that pandemic. It started long before that, so.
It just struck me, how long would you know if it takes to clean a floor or clean the floors at the high school for such a device, or how many devices would it need? And then would the motion trigger the lights to go on and off in the evening after the building is empty?
We have a time delay on our light sensors of 30 minutes, so we don't overcycle. And we had a full demonstration test. They came in one night and they programmed it, did all the programming and setup. And then we came back the second night and we witnessed the operation. We just stood around and the service provider, walked it around, put it in the beginning of the area that it was programmed to run for that night, pushed the button, let it go. We took turns like standing in front of it to see what would happen. We put obstacles in front of it so that we wanted to see how it would work around the obstacle. Mm-hmm. And I had to chuckle because just last weekend, I was doing some of my Black Friday weekend shopping and I saw one of these at Sam's. It was a different brand. And this other brand didn't have some of the features that ours has. The machine just basically stalled and was just all in flux because there was too much traffic around the unit. These devices and this is a software that only this company has. It's theirs. Most other manufacturers, including my one I saw at Sam's, was they're all using this one other software. And so that company has been having a stranglehold on the market, and that's probably kept the price point up. This company has their own, it's been proven for years. It has actually technology that locally has cameras and sensors. They use LiDAR. I don't know if you know what LiDAR is. It's becoming in vogue in the public works world right now, big time. And it actually, it's easier to program the area of work, and it knows the surroundings very well. And so it tries to make its own maneuvers after a stall and just wait for a while and see, is this obstacle moving it because we don't want to move where it is, sort of thing. And then after seeing that whatever it is stagnant, like, well, maybe it's a chair or something, it will try to go around. And if it's, say it's me playing games with it, keep hopping in front of it, it'll basically then totally freeze up and it pings someone. They have a 24-hour service as part of the lease agreement price. They will actually look at the camera, see what's going on, and send a ping to our employee that we choose on site, a text, saying, please go over and check the machine, there's something going on. Like maybe somebody played a prank and put a row of tables in front down the hallway or something, or maybe the battery's low, or the recovery tank of the solution is full, or whatever, and we'll just give somebody an alert to go walk over there and check out what's going on.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Just to make sure I understood the benefit, you had described it as costing about 3/4 of the cost of a full-time employee, or
Yes.
saving 3/4. So it's 25% savings against.
Well, I always look at it from what's the break-even point, okay? And to clean those hallways with the kind of machines that an employee has to walk behind, it's approaching that, okay? Approaching that 3/4. Now, there will be a little bit of time for that employee that's going to have to go take it and put it into the next zone, so to speak. I don't think we're going to be able to afford to go to every doorway in the high school and replace the hardware through one of the multiple openings there to make it functional. But we're struggling right now to try to get that all put together to make sure that we can meet that goal and just be break even. But the good news is this will be an employee that will probably report to work every night. and the price will be fixed.
No.
For the term at least.
To at least be cost neutral.
Yeah, that's the goal. I'm sorry, yeah, goal central.
Okay, thank you.
The next thing I've got for you is, ComEd, the dilemma with ComEd and our attempts to try to gather data from ComEd to be able to do a financial dollar value evaluation, one for one, of what we would have saved without solar. Now, I presented you reports to get us through the two first full years of service. And we're at the point in time now where ComEd has changed their software on their end, and they are not able to produce the data, they're saying, in the form that they were before. In the form that they were before, I want to explain to the board that it's not as simple as, well, gee whiz, it's just the data just moved around. We have multiple meters on each of our 3 building accounts. And we need to look at each of those four meters and aggregate on a time basis every interval of the every 30 minutes of the 24 hours a day of the 31 days of the billing period, in order to determine where there are coincidental draws on the account. And it's different if we didn't have solar. And we can't merge all that data together any longer because of the way ComEd has reformatted their information. They're taking a latch-disc effort right now. They're not confident at all. The person that worked with them and us to get the data out once before has been retired. It was pulled out of retirement for that purpose and is probably not available any longer. But I will tell you that a reflection on how we've handled guaranteed financial savings on prior energy conservation and sustainable efforts is we usually look at a measurement verification period of the first few years of the contract. And rather than the expense and time to keep recalculating that over and over through the entire contract, we've demonstrated that we are getting financial value. And once again, if you may not recollect, we exceeded what we were supposed to produce by, I think, in excess of 10% again with that 2-year review. There's a last-ditch effort out there, but I'm proposing to the board to consider the idea that we've met our goal, proving that financially we save, but we will continue through the entire contract to make sure that the solar system produces, which is what our contract with Forefront Power requires. It requires that they have to produce the amount of kilowatt hours that meteorologically it should according to their initial design. And I'd love to hear if there's any concern with that at this time. I'm not saying I'm 100% giving up, but we're getting close.
Right. At some point, trying to obtain the data is worth the effort that it takes, especially after it's been proven out over the first couple of years. And again, the main component to whether this is working or not is the output. And that you're still going to be able to monitor forever. So I'm not too concerned about the other variables, that the smaller variables that affect what those savings might actually be and how to measure them. So, I mean, in my world, I'm not that concerned about it. I mean, I understand the dilemma. It ain't, but I also have been explained to me before how engrossing it might be to try and get this data, and it's not, it's just not worth the time or effort.
It's disappointing that ComEd, I just have to say this, in their initial, when they send us a bill, what they do is they take the readings from all the meters in the account, they aggregate them, then they divide them by the number of meters, and that's the numbers we see on the bill. We don't see the real numbers for each building. So we're not really understanding what the building's doing. Now, we're working with our Building Automation Controls partner, CTS, right now, and fine-tuning we've got our own private metering system that we're going to try to recapture some of the building data ourselves that we read. Now, is ComEd going to dispute that? I don't know. But we'll be able to otherwise monitor our buildings and what they're performing at. But to get this calculation, we still won't be able to do that.
Right. Online, you see the output, and then you see what your actual bill is. So
yeah,
you have two of the major variables you need to know. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
The next item I've got is that You'll notice in the agenda, like Paul mentioned, there are quite a few items tonight. A lot of the projects that we had on the larger projects that we had on the radar for funding of capital replacement projects, bids have been received. There's still one more big one to go. That's the asphalt replacement phase, the next phase of the school parking lots. And that is the extension drive from Martin to Marlow isn't been bid yet. And we're putting in the bid package. It's about ready to go out. Tomorrow I'm supposed to receive the first draft for review of the bid plan and spec package from the designer. It'll include the bus lot at Martin, and we'll have we'll just reissue the alternate for that kind of sort of like a roundabout at the entrance to Haligus and Marlow to see if with the interest of the board is one more time and what the market bears for that. But I will tell you what we're finding right now is the cost of doing business is going up. And so there are some of the projects that are on the list. I'm sorry, there's one other big project that's actually already out there. We just haven't opened the bid yet. We had pre-bid meeting 2 days ago in this room. And that was the transportation bus lot expansion in consideration to either do spot repairs in the back existing bus parking lot or taking an altered bid to replace the whole back area because it's getting pretty serious disrepair there. We just don't know financially if it's going to fit into our budget to do the whole thing. It just might have to kick that can down the road a year or two further. But those two projects are out there. But there are some smaller things like replacing carpet and some things like that. We just might have to hold off if we're not meeting our budget goals for the coming year and just move everything down a little bit. The cost of doing business is going up. If there's no question on that, I have one more thing. Just an interesting thought for you. Right now, we're in a little interesting place in how we're buying natural gas, and that is that we've got our gas positions for our 9 facilities that the district owns, if you will. And our cost for a therm of gas on that is, because of all the work that we've done on strategizing how we buy, the aggregated cost per therm of gas is 49 cents for the month of November. We have one little building that we rent now for the ALOT program, and that we're just buying straight up at the NICOR price. We paid $1.12. So we're doing pretty good on our gas buying.
Yes, no, it's a good tip, good tip.
All right, any questions on the O&M updates then? All right, moving ahead to 7.2, the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance membership.
This is, the district has participated in several national purchasing cooperatives, and it's recognized by state statute that it's a legal way for us to procure things. And there is interest in another project that is in one of our further action items in the packet here that is a price point that is according to this cooperative pricing. And we do have confirmation from the cooperative that the pricing that the vendor has provided meet the contract requirements of that cooperative. So it's a no-cost item for us, but I'm told legally we need to take action to have membership approve something like this before we act on approving a contract under this form.
Yeah, we've benefited from this agreement, and since it comes at no cost to us, I think it's fine that we go ahead and proceed forward, but I'll still poll the committee to see if there's any objections with moving this forward to the board meeting.
For the categories of purchase that goes through this, what type of material is on the cooperative, or is it?
This, as are most of these purchasing cooperatives, it's a pretty broad spectrum. What we're focusing on right now is HVAC improvements that you will hear about. I'm not sure about that.
Understood.
Any objections with moving this forward?
A question though.
Yeah.
Do we enter into a new one every time? We did this for baseball, didn't we, a few months ago?
It's only one time request for approval for membership to a particular cooperative. This is just one we haven't joined before.
Yeah, okay. So it's an annual.
Baseball cooperative, different cooperative.
No, it's not annual. It's just, if we run across a project that has an offering of this kind of service or equipment or supply or whatever, and we already have an established agreement with that cooperative, we do not have to, ask for approval to become a member.
Okay,
It's just, this is one we haven't yet become a member of.
okay, now I understand. Thank you.
You wouldn't happen to know off the top of your head how many different cooperatives we're a part of, would you?
Oh my, there are, in the I think this has become an emerging market in the last 12 years or so, and I'm not really even sure how many there are. That's a question that I'm not.
No, from how many are we participant of? Not how many are out there, just how many of these have we?
Oh, that we're members of?
Yeah,
4,
okay,
maybe 5?
We have collective property liability.
yeah,
There's a few.
okay, thank you.
Do any of the memberships mandate purchase through them, or they only use one beneficial?
What they do is how a cooperative works, is, and the state statute says in Illinois that if any state in the union, issues, like the state sponsors a formal bidding of something and vets the pricing and determines where the most cost-effective service provider is and documents that, the state of Illinois will recognize that vetting and that price point, and that's how these cooperatives are formed, as I understand.
All right, any further questions? All right, Mr. Craddy, any objection to moving this ahead then?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. We'll move that forward to the board in 2 weeks. 7.3, community solar at Reed Road campus, please.
You have before you, in a very early draft, I know Mark and I and the members of the Forefront team who happen to be with us here, as Rachel, thank you for joining us again tonight, are here. This is an early draft of that document. Our attorney has beat it up a little more. Their attorneys beat it up a lot. Internally, we've gone back and forth a little bit. We've got a little more refined version in the last few days. But this isn't just ask for approval yet. This is just reporting to you and sharing with you the conceptual idea what this is. I just want to make sure the board understands what the request for commitment is at this point in time in this process. We hope to bring you the final version of this option to lease at the December 15th meeting as an action item. But this is just a request for approval to agree to an option to lease. And by agreeing to an option, we then have to have a agree to lease form that if other things that need to be approved are approved, and therefore we would then agree to lease the particular parcel. You heard about the financial gains in the last board meeting about this. But I do want you to recognize there are 2 key tests that have to be run through before we would be then committed as a school district to signing a lease for use of this property. One is that ComEd has to agree that the interconnect of this 2.75 megawatt installation is acceptable to them, and they'll have to share whatever financial impacts that our partner to the Forefront would experience, and they have to make sure that still works in the financials. And then the other key one is that we will have, Forefront will, and the district will have to go before the Lake in the Hills Village Board and gain approval through our special use permit. So the community will have an opportunity to review and comment and to agree or not through that village zoning review process.
So if either of those 2 fail, then this agreement won't be moving forward. There's still a couple other bodies and entities that weigh in, it's not just us.
Yes.
Okay.
But if those 2 agree, by us agreeing to this option to lease, then we agree to go forward.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, we
Go ahead,
Come on
please,
up.
Rachel.
You know the drill.
just to clarify the option.
Oh, please, turn the green light.
Green light.
There we go.
There we go.
It looks like it was on for a second. Just to clarify, the option to lease is needed for us to do those 2 things. So, I mean, technically, we've already applied for interconnection because we wanted to get started on that timeframe at our risk. So the interconnection application is pending right now at our risk. But for the permitting, in order to have the access rights and the ability to do some of the site surveys that are necessary for the permitting process, we need the option to lease in place. if for some reason the interconnection fails, which we don't think it will because we did a pre-app and ComEd indicated there was room on their lines, but ComEd lately has been making some mistakes on their pre-app, but our pre-app shows that it's good, so the interconnection should be fine. So let's say it's not, or, you know, we are unable to get the permits, then we would terminate the option to lease. If you have any questions about the lease document, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from the committee or the board?
The interconnection fees that maybe ComEd would communicate to you, and does Forefront absorb that cost, so it's not?
Everything.
Everything? Okay.
Yeah, and our budget right now assumes $300K for interconnection, and so we've agreed in the lease document that if the interconnection upgrades come back lower than that from ComEd, that we will then pass that along to the district in the form of a higher lease payment. That's just an added benefit in the lease, is that we're giving the, in the event that our budget amount comes in lower, we're passing that on to you all.
Thank you for that comment. Maybe I can just expand a little more, because I know some community members have expressed concern before us. There is no financial investment or risk to the district in this process here. We have no financial output for this. We will get a return on our property value much more than the cash farm rental that we're presently getting.
Thank you for that, because I think it is important, you know, to reiterate that for the community to hear that, and just to have that reaffirmed, that there is no cost to the district. So thank you.
Yeah, you all just happen to be in a unique position where there's a new program that happened with the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, that if school districts lease land you own to community solar developers, there's a specific opportunity for that, and we bear all the financial risk of the investigation, the building of the project, and whatnot. This is just a windfall to the district.
When you did your application, forgive me if I fuddle with the terms here, was there enough bandwidth, if you will, for what ComEd is looking, what this would add to their grid? Or is this really pushing right up against their ceiling where this could be a more questionable proposition? Or if they have that leeway, significant leeway, where this really still fits comfortably underneath that limit that they may have?
Yeah, you're exactly right in the concept. So we submitted a pre-app to ComEd, and we initially submitted it for a 5-megawatt AC project, which would have taken a larger amount of the property. We received the pre-app back from ComEd, and it only showed enough room on the feeder for a 2.75 megawatt AC project. So that's why we then downsized from 5 to 2.75. The proposal we showed to you at the last board meeting was for that 2.75, so for the amount that reflected the pre-app. The risk is that, you know, as soon as we got the pre-app back, we immediately submitted for interconnection, because you want to make sure you get that capacity before someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So there is always risk that in the time from when we submitted the pre-app to when we submitted our full interconnection application, that someone snuck in there and took some capacity. So that risk is low. There's also a risk that ComEd provided a pre-app that later they said, look, we actually made some mistakes, because they have a record number of interconnection applications right now, and so across a few of our other projects, they're like, sorry, we realized we made this mistake, or we can't study that feeder, we should have studied this feeder, so it's possible we get that type of feedback. But we followed the process as much as we could to ensure that the application that we submitted should be favorable.
Okay. And I'm also curious, how prevalent are these projects of this type in Illinois right now? I know driving down several highways, you see the wind farms, but I'm not sure that I've seen a solar farm necessarily, so I'm curious how much is this growing in popularity?
Yeah, so there were a number of community solar projects that were completed in 2018 through the Future Energy Jobs Act. It was very competitive to get a spot in that program. I would assume most of those projects have been built now, but one reason why you maybe haven't seen them is because there was limited capacity and you had to get a spot. Now, under the Crime and Equitable Jobs Act, there's many more spots, but they're designated for specific types of projects. So there's one block of spots that requires you to receive a certain number of points, and these points range from like siding all the way to dual use. Then there's another block that goes to equity eligible contractors, which is a category of contractor created by this law, and then there's another block specifically for public schools. So the block that we're talking about, where there's spots available, there's plenty of spots for public schools, and that's the one we would be going after. But I envision, you know, that first block with the points, that was highly oversubscribed, as well as the equity eligible contractor block, so I would expect many more projects like this to come online. But within the schools block, because it has to be land that's owned by a school, there's not that many projects. So we're very confident that, you know, should we get the permitting and the interconnection, we will definitely get a spot.
Okay.
Many of my peers have called me and say that their community and their board is interested in solar, and we start talking about it, and then they realize, well, we don't have land.
Yeah.
Most of them don't.
Yeah, if you don't have land, it gets very
They
complicated,
do.
because then I have to get in a whole conversation about roof replacement schedules.
Right. Now, something like this, I could see either going downstate or further west where school districts aren't landlocked like they are here in the collar counties.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm curious as to the prospects for growth in other areas to do something similar like this, where it still becomes beneficial for both parties, quite honestly, so.
Yeah, and right now there is a waiting list for people who would like to subscribe to these types of projects, and then you get the savings. So there historically has been more demand than there are projects, but I think that should change as this next group of projects comes online.
Thank you.
We should be able to serve that demand.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I've done enough. Any other questions from the board members? All right.
Thank you. We'll continue to work on the lead. We're almost done.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right. Anything further on that one, or we can move on to the next one, right? Okay. Then 7.4, the DX cooling systems replacement at Marlow Middle School.
The committee has completed their review, and there is a brief summary of the opportunities that were presented to the committee. And as you will see, the most cost-effective approach proposal was from Midwest Mechanical, and it is through the NPCA Cooperative. It is for the installation of DC heat pump and DC inverter heat pump system. The first question that came out of my mind when we opened this proposal is, what is this? And so we actually visited a facility not nearby who has an installation in aggregate, the tonnage of all the cooling, which is a measure of the capacity of cooling, is actually very similar to Marlow Middle School. It's in a little bit different configuration. It's 2 office building towers. They're in Arlington Heights. But we talked to the person that's worked at that facility for 30 years, saw that retrofit completed, and has witnessed this operation for the last year and a half, and he had nothing bad to say about it. They actually bought a large tub of spare parts because of the large quantity of systems, and they haven't opened one pallet yet. This is an installation that's 10-year parts warranty. The contractor's reputation, I've interviewed about 5 or 6 of the school districts they service. Everyone really likes this company. They do a fantastic job, they said. And to the extent that they've actually then hired them to do other work. So we think this is a very good opportunity for us to address this concern that we have with R-22 refrigerant in our school district. I got to tell you that I really enjoy the staff I have in the O&M office that work for me, Kevin and Jennifer, but about the only thing Kevin does that gives me a pain once in a while is he sends me the monthly update on the R-22 prices. It's gone up another 10% in the last 30 days. Just keeps hurting worse and worse, and that's because it's not manufactured anymore. So This would address that, and it would install R410. Interestingly enough, last month's update, the price of R410A for some reason went down from like $560 to $398. I'm not sure. You know, so, it's the refrigerant that we've used in this. And once again, there is no refrigerant gas for cooling that's out there that would be totally off the radar concern, but this is a much more environmentally friendly version. And this equipment has been demonstrated, as we see, to perform very well. So, it is our biggest, cost of doing business, recognized proposal we received at the batch that you're looking at today, but, it's not gonna get any more economical. This is also equipment that can be delivered in a reasonable amount of time. The other proposals you see on this page here are all equipment you're looking at like 50 weeks delivery. This equipment we deliver in 12 weeks. So it's all pretty good news on this proposal we received. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, committee or board members, any questions? Okay, not hearing any objections with moving this forward then to the board. Nodding of heads, all good? Okay. Thank you to the team for working through this entire process, and doing the interviews and scouting and everything else. I know this is a big deal, so, thank you one and all for the time that was invested in this. We'll go ahead and move this forward to the board for approval in 2 weeks. Item 7.5, track resurfacing at Heineman Middle School.
This is one that actually, the bids came in, and the low bid is about the same price as last year. We did Marlowe last year. These track surfaces are a little, they're on a recognized about 8-year cycle, and we're right at 8 years, so it's time. It needs to be done. The rubber starts to despond from the asphalt underneath at this point in its life. Sorry to say it's expected. So we have, and this is a company that's done this resurfacing and the first installation for us, as a matter of fact, so we have no reason to not recommend them. So be happy to answer any questions.
Are there alternatives that have a longer lifespan than the 8 years?
Oh, yeah. Just, for example, like the one that's the other proposal here, they tried to have a dialogue with me way late in the bidding process. It was like the day before the bids are due, and I'm like, I don't know if you realize what you're talking about here. It's just apples and oranges. We have a much longer life surface at our high school. But years ago, when these middle schools were built, this is what we had chose to have installed in it.
So just having, following up to Jonathan's question though, so the Dyna Fast Track, obviously a different style. What kind of life cycle does that have?
Yeah, from what I saw in the preliminary information they gave me, it's on the verge of comparable to our Reckitt at the high school, which is about a 12-year cycle.
Okay.
So if you look at, it's more than, it's almost triple, it's between double and triple the cost, but it's only 50% more life.
Yeah, right.
That was the genesis of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just, my engineering background wants to give you exact information, and I can just ballpark it.
I love that engineering background. I am a little bit concerned as to the number of bidders on this, because the low number, so the comparables, obviously is skewed.
I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. This was a product that was in the district recognized before I got here. Some of you have been here long before the day when we renovated the athletic fields at the high school. This is the product that was on the high school track before 2013.
Okay.
And so the district had a history with this product. This company, I beat the bushes long and far on this. They're like the only game in town.
Okay.
Yeah, and you said, I mean, what gives you comfort is they're comparable to prior year on Heineman surface. We didn't have any problems with the install or anything like that type of thing, and it's the 87,000 is effectively $10,000 a year.
They're patching the loose spots. They're putting 2 layers of new material on top of it.
Yeah, what you're saying is like, with only 2 bidders.
Yeah.
But like you said, sometimes it's all you, too many players.
Understood. Still have to ask the question then,
Yeah.
so. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any objections with moving this ahead then to the next board meeting. I do not hear any objections, so we'll go ahead and move that ahead. Item 7.6, the asphalt crack fill, seal coat, et cetera, paint bid.
This is, somewhat of a routine thing. It's been my practice over the years as I've watched asphalt age, go through the life cycle. I've been doing this long enough, I've seen the same piece of asphalt go through 2.5 life cycles. And what I've learned is that, after new asphalt is laid, after the first year of life, it's a good idea to, get a sealer on the surface to lock in the petroleum and, the smaller aggregates like sand particles into the surface, so that they don't continue to wear away and degrade the asphalt in an accelerated fashion. And so that's the main reason this is put out there, and it is for the Marlowe, car parking lot area that was paved, the summer of '22. And, this company has a great reputation. We've worked with them before. My peers, I've had plenty of dialogue with my peers, and, they all have had good experiences with this company. I have no reason to not consider their bid.
Okay. Any questions from the board or the committee?
Yeah, I mean, we do this every year to a certain extent. The price per lineal feet hasn't significantly, I mean, it's risen, right, but it's.
Yeah, it's up about 15%.
Okay. Secondarily, it's good to know, Doug, that you've outlasted some of our asphalt.
I'm getting closer.
You mean that in a good way, right?
Yeah. Hope you outlast some more.
Okay, any other questions from the committee or the board? All right, same question as before. Any objections with moving this forward then? All right, we'll go ahead and move that ahead. Item 7.7, roof replacement at Huntley High School, please.
This is second to last phase of Huntley High School's roof restoration bid for that. The company that goes a little bit, L. Marshall, has done work with us before. They've got a reputation in the Chicagoland area that they can get the job done. They've done the particular kind of roof product that we specify. We have no reason to be concerned with this. I've interviewed them. There's no need to interview the references because we're one of them. And the manufacturer who sits alongside me all through the bidding process and the evaluation process, the company that will provide the warranty, they have no concern. Again, this is one of the proposals of the cost of doing business. You know, it's chemicals and we're a liquid applied roof, and that goes to the petroleum industry and the petroleum market. So it's one of those cost of doing business items. It's my vision that we only have one more year after this in our roof restorations to get our district back original roof over our head are done for at least 15 years. We have to go back through the cycle.
Right. So,
Yes, thank you.
I do have a question. So it being so price sensitive to the petroleum, what kind of provisions, I haven't looked detailed through any of these contracts, what provisions do they have if it goes up or down significantly from the time they're bidding? Because this isn't happening until June or May, right?
I appreciate you bringing this up. When this year came, and because of how inflation is pacing and all these supply chain issues and things, one of the things I do before I agree to release these bid specifications is I poll the market, the contractors, and I say, okay, when's the right time? I want to get out as early as what's reasonable so that I can get the good bidders who want to get their book of work filled for next summer. But I don't want to be out so early that they're putting extra money in their bid to ensure that they're not going to have any price issues. And this is one of those where I was told by everybody that this is solid. If they have this commitment for the production to be produced and delivered in May, right now awarding a bid is fine for the coming year.
So there's no provisions in there that allow them to go up or down in the pricing on this based on.
No, they're agreeing to this price.
any additional questions? All right, any objections with moving this one ahead? I hear no objections, okay, we'll move that one forward as well. 7.8, authorized agent.
This is an annual event. It's time to consider, asking the board to, consider approval of an agent of the board, should the market for energy procurement as we try to preserve our positions in the procurement of natural gas and electricity, and well, not electricity anymore, we're beyond that now, we're buying from kind of, but it's the natural gas market, I guess, is basically it. But we asked, for the, it could possibly be the electric market, but if there's ever some big shift change, but I don't see it happening. We're in such a good position with our interval pricing at the average price from the utility. But in the natural gas market, it's really a moving target. And when the market has so many volatile ups and downs right now, where it hits, we jump. Try to nail those numbers. And usually we're pretty successful. But we need an agent of the board that's authorized to sign the contracts, to put our hedging positions in place, usually within 24 hours. And so time to go through board meeting for action is pretty limited. We do this every year, and we'd ask the board to help us designate a person to be that agent, and it's been Paul for quite a few years.
Several, yeah. So we're looking for volunteers for anybody that wants to step forward.
Everybody take a step back.
Troy, volunteer, you, Mr. Troy? Yeah, I saw that one coming, but I thought I'd, still open it to anybody who actually had an interest in stepping ahead. So I appreciate that everybody stepped back. I'm happy to serve in this capacity once again, with the board's approval, so I'm okay with that. The committee's okay with that, moving ahead.
Congratulations.
We're okay with it.
Thank you so much. Okay. We'll move that one ahead, and I promise the last one on the O&M section tonight is the boiler makeup air unit in middle school.
This is the last one of these kinds of bids that we're bringing to the board. There are some of our buildings that have the kind of installation of where we take in the fresh air that is used for combustion in the boilers, in the boiler room, that have the fresh air intake right next to the water mains and the fire protection sprinkler water mains in the building. And when we get into a situation where it's extremely cold outside, we can freeze the water lines to the building. We've done damage to the buildings before, and we've been in scary moments. And we've had to do things that are kind of scary to make sure that we can keep the building warm and that we can keep there being functional water systems in the building for the next school day that comes. Because if we would have a major freeze up, we could be out of school for a while and potentially experience some significant water damage. This is Heinemann Middle School. So I will tell you, this is probably the one that sticker shocked me the most. The manufacturer of the versions of these equipment that we've installed in Conley, McCabe, and Marlowe, the other buildings that we've had this challenge, their pricing was with a different brand, but that company has since decided not to manufacture those kinds of units anymore. And we don't think that's all the challenges, and we're gonna, but we're glad that this is the last one. But we need to protect our buildings in those key cold periods of the winter, so we can open school the next day. So I'd be happy. Jensen's Plumbing and Heating has done a lot of work for us over the years through bidding process on a front. They've been partner to building constructions for us. So we have had real good experience with them. We have no concern with them. Be happy to answer any questions.
I'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, so Wolf was involved then?
Yes, Wold has a mechanical engineering department, and they work with us to put this design together. There's some roofing involved and things too. This configuration, there is no position in the mechanical room interior. This installation is on the roof.
On the roof itself?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what we did at Marlowe.
Okay. I don't remember the work at Marlowe.
I'm glad, and you don't see it up there, that car.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Just a question.
Yep.
Given the pretty significant imbalance between sort of supply of this type of material and the overall demand for it, is this the right period to do this? And what's the impact of doing it in a later period? We talk about 50 weeks of lead time for parts, some of these parts. Maybe this isn't part of it, but my experience has been HVAC is pretty inflated right now. Do you expect that will come back down? And if we defer until a later period, is there a real risk to the building's ability to operate or function? I don't know if you have a perspective on whether or not the market comes back into line I know, my personal experience has been that these markets are hyperinflated right now.
We could pull this and make it an action item and just go explore that with the contractor, I guess, and talk to them about it, bring it back.
I'm just trying to understand what's the risk of not doing it now, and do you feel like
Well,
it'll come back into line in some period in the future?
My only concern is that, we haven't had a polar vortex for a few years now, and we're gonna have one, and will we make it through it again? You know, maybe, I don't know. I don't wanna sound, a doomsayer or anything, but I'd be welcome just a second look at that, we could do that.
Well, so the question is, when does this get installed? We approve it in December.
Summer. Now,
So this isn't something that we're gonna be able to get in for this
No,
winter type
no,
of thing, so.
no.
I mean,
But
that's
the
along
bid-
the lines of your question is this something that can possibly wait, to see if the market kind of cools down?
I can tell you unequivocally, the market is not going to come back down anytime soon. In the next 2 years at least, we know of increases for all the different companies in HVAC. It's not gonna level off for a while.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question.
The biggest, areas of stress right now, as I understand it, the building construction, the physical plant hardware, number one, chillers, and number two, electrical distribution systems and transformers. And, ComEd is just screaming bloody murder right now, because people are really mad at them. They wanna build a building and have electric service, and they can't get a transformer. Switch gears are just ridiculous too, and chillers, it's like, you know, well, if you wanna do it, let's wait a year. On this, I haven't really asked a question on this one. Mechanical engineer was running with this one, but we could go back to Jensen and ask him, but all the things I'm hearing is this market isn't going away. Now, our DX cooling project that you heard about a few steps ahead, it's a different kind of hardware. It's manufactured in South Korea. And that particular different kind of hardware is available. It's just, the world economy is crazy. It really is. It's sort of upside down.
So my perspective would be, you would take this forward, but, yeah, investigate a little bit further. But I mean, both, Jonathan, your point was excellent, and, yeah, I just didn't know the timing, so now I understand the timing, but then Mr. Guerin being able to, I know he's in the HVAC industry, and he's got some insight into that. That is the case. Continue to go forward, and would want to further be exposed to increases that might come if we wait. I would still move this forward.
No, I would want to move it forward as well, because if nothing else, we can always pull it from the agenda, even though we move it ahead. But if we hold off, then we could have potential other issues.
Right.
I'd rather not backlog this.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Craddia, how are you?
No, I hear.
You're one more person in that voice, but I still want to make sure you're heard.
Yeah, because we can, like you said, we can always pull it. I think we should definitely move it forward.
Okay. Any other questions? I know the committee voted to go ahead and move this ahead, but thank you for asking the questions too.
Yeah.
Thanks for making those points.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and move that forward then, and that will close out building and grounds for this evening.
Okay, item 8 is Board of Education. We have the minutes, previous meeting, questions about moving those forward to the board for approval for our next meeting. We'll do that. Item 8.2, I did slightly jump the gun earlier, but I just wanted to make sure it was 100% what committees we had going tonight. Just reiterating what I had stated earlier is that we would have Irino, she's already a member of the Community Relations. She would move to be the chair on that. And she would we remove this chair on policy and we just stay on as a member. Troy would move from policy and go to legislation. Bailey would become the chair of policy, for the Community Relations and the Human Resources Committee. Anybody have any questions, concerns about that? Do they consider anything different? If not, that's what I would propose to move forward with, and to approve at our meeting, committee reorganization. Okay, and then with that, we have no closed session this evening, so no number 9. So no, number 10 is, not resuming from anything, so I think we're at adjournment. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 7:37. Is there a second? Second. Second from Mr. Guerin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.